Hi, and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on the journey toward publication. I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fantasy.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance. Jamie, you're muted. So are you, Rhonda?
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction under the pen name Dee Dee Bowman.
So thanks for tuning in to all of you listening live, and a big thank you to all of our listeners on iTunes or any of the other platforms where we make our audio available. YouTubers, if you like what we do, remember to like, subscribe, share on all your social media, hit all the buttons. And you can also go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, which will ensure you'll never miss an episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. So we like to start each episode with a segment we call What's Up? It's time to check in with one another and see where we are with our writing and our personal lives. So what's up, Rhonda?
I knew you were going to call on me first because I was just going to make it up on the fly after I heard what you guys were doing. But I really have had a pretty, I haven't had a lot of stuff going on this week. I'll update you on my NaNo in a little bit, but I've just been trying to plug away, I've had some different circumstances this week I've had to deal with. So just trying to keep everything else normal, pretty much.
Okay. What about you, Jennifer?
Well, I'm kind of similar to Rhonda, not to the same extreme, but like my mom we had almost had to put her in the hospital again this week. And so there's been a lot of distractions with that as well. And, but really and truly, like what I want to talk about today was, how ticked off I am about this jerk at the grocery store last night who got my hopes up and said that we're supposed to get snow last night. No snow. Woke up, no snow. So
we
I'm
didn't
ready
get any
for it.
snow here either.
In Florida, you didn't get any snow? It's amazing. But here in Michigan, like in all my memories yesterday that were popping up. Oh, I know this. Sorry. I'm going to change mine real quick. My WhatsApp, because I forgot I was going to say this, but my memories were half of them were first snow from all these different years. So I guess it snows a lot on November 11th. And the other ones were all these people posting to my Facebook page that they were praying for me. Like lots and lots of people, like all these memories were showing up. And I went back and realized that this is the weekend that I discovered that I had cancer back in 2016. So praise God that he gave me those reminders yesterday that prayer works and that I have great people in my life and God is the great healer. And yeah, here we are 5 years later. It's crazy.
Yeah. And also praise God for no snow.
I'm ambivalent about the snow. If it snowed everywhere but the road, I would be very happy. Like if we could do that. I wanted to say I ordered this thing and it just came this morning. Like there was this really loud pounding on my door this morning and I wasn't even dressed. I'm like, what is that? It was my delivery. And I'm really excited about it because I saw this on an ad on Facebook for a different one. And I went and looked on Amazon and I had to get one. So it is it's a journal Bible. So it's spiral. It's the entire Bible. So you open it up and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but it's got the scriptures on one side of the page and room to journal next to it.
That's awesome. That is really cool.
I am going to use it for when I teach my Bible studies. Like to have my notes and the scriptures on the same page is going to be like a game changer for when I'm teaching the Bible study. So I'm really excited.
That is so
about my journal Bible.
And I'm going to like become the best Rhonda that I can right now too, to say that like that is going to be an heirloom as well someday, because I have one of my so when I was in college, you know, you grow up in the church, you have all these kids' Bibles and you have like little Bibles that are gifted to you in Bible school or whatever. And they were just like the cheap ones. I didn't have a study Bible. And so, and then my other ones had gotten lost because you're a kid, right? So when I was in college, I asked for a Bible for Christmas and nobody got me one because I guess everyone thought, well, you have Bibles, and I didn't. And so my grandmother felt bad and she gave me one of her Bibles. And I still like I have it somewhere. It's still packed away, but she would write notes. Every sermon that my grandpa had, she would write the date and where he was, whatever church he was in, and a little notes about it, or like whatever little revelation she had. And that is so precious to me. And I still write. And some people are like, "Oh, don't write in your Bible. It's sacrilegious." Are you kidding me? No, I write my Bible all the time. So that thing is cool. I might need to get one of
It's
those.
just paper.
I know.
It's the words that are. Anyway,
Right.
the best part, it's pink. I don't know if you can see.
Very cute. I
It's
can
like
see.
baby pink.
Maria
So,
says she has a Bible journal, but not spiral. She hasn't used it in a while, though. Keep meaning to get back to it. Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, I'm
I
excited.
really like that it's spiral because I'm going to be able to open it up and it'll be flat and it'll be
Mhm.
easier to write on.
And you can
Mhm.
like flip it around to where you have just one side. Yeah, that's great.
And they also had just the New Testament, or just the Gospels, I mean. Like if
Mhm.
you didn't want to spend the money for this big entire Bible, you could get one that just had the 4 Gospels in it.
It's very cool.
Yeah. So what about you, Jamie? What's up with you?
Well, for my what's up, I'm gonna keep with the doing a stoicism quote and also finding a Bible parallel to it, because I like to imagine in my mind how these ancient philosophers were living in a time before the gospel came to them. So anyway, the quote from the Stoics is gone. Where is it? Here it is. Sorry, my tabs. All right. So this is Marcus Aurelius, who said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." And what I did was looked up scriptures on integrity, and there were so many. Because I believe that quote was more or less saying to have integrity. And it's like really hard to pick just one. So I'm going to pick Proverbs 11:3. And I'm going to say the integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. So that is my what's up for you all today.
All right. Do we have any what's ups in the chat?
We do. We've a lot of chat going on. Welcome everybody this morning. Shell says her what's up. She really missed us all last Friday. Back to writing every day, and she's on a 42-day streak.
Wow,
Good
great.
for you, Shell. Good for you.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
So we can transition then into our topic of the day, which is, should I quit NaNoWriMo?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
We hear it a lot, right? And I ask it to myself every day in November, every single day, even when I'm doing well with Nano. Like I seriously like ask myself, do you guys do that too? Do you ask yourself that all the time, or is that just me?
No,
No,
I wish I could quit, but I feel like I can't.
I have this nagging voice. I don't know if it's me or if it's just like the nagging voice.
What are the voices saying to you, Tina?
You should quit. No, you shouldn't quit. Yes, you should.
Oh, they argue in your head.
Yes,
That's awesome.
there's like little Tinas sitting on my shoulder.
What about you, Rhonda?
For me, I don't know. It's only 30 days, so it sort of, I don't have enough time to want to quit yet.
Yeah. Shell says, "Oh, good. I thought it was just me. I've been asking myself this all week."
Shell, if you do not write that project for NaNoWriMo, you have to write it. You have to write that project. Shell has the most awesome story idea and premise. And I don't know if she's comfortable with me sharing it or not, but Shell, I want you to please write that because I would love to read it. So if you don't write it for Nano, please do write it and publish it eventually.
Okay, so what are some of the reasons that someone would consider quitting?
Maybe you feel your story is going nowhere.
Yeah.
You're way behind in your word count. You just can't see that you're ever going to be able to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say it. Your name is Jen, and you're cursed again.
I know. The Nano curse. So we got to stop here a minute and talk about the Nano curse. If you've been listening or watching us for any length of time and you've been with us for any Nano, you will know that since the beginning of my Nano journey, there's been a curse. And I mentioned, it's not a real curse, but I mentioned that all the memories on my Facebook page and reminded me that this is exactly when they discovered cancer. Well, guess what? That was my first year doing NaNo. And then that same, when I got out of the hospital, was the same day my grandma died, the day I got out of the hospital, of someone who was very, very important to me in my life. And then the next year, I lost someone else. And then the year after, like, it just was one thing after another. And it's like every year something happens, right? So I just keep waiting for the shoe to fall this year. But so far, it's just been kind of like life is normal, which is crazy enough as itself. But things like that do happen that will derail you, right?
Mhm. I would say that's a good reason.
Yeah.
So let's have a little debate or a discussion. What is the case for quitting NaNo?
So if we're going to feed the little Tina on the one shoulder that says, yes, you should quit. Well, I mean, I guess like you're in charge.
Right.
You're in charge of your life and whether or not you're going to quit NaNo or not.
Right. And there's just like we kind of hinted at, there are things that just have to become priorities. Sometimes things happen that you can't avoid. Like I mentally there have been years I mentally could not finish my NaNo project because of events that happened in my life. One of the years, my uncle, who, I mean, everyone's like, oh, an uncle. No. He was like a second dad to me. He was very, very important to me. He died like suddenly. Yeah, it was like no one was expecting it. And I did not have the mental capacity to continue. So your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And sometimes you just need to stop whatever you're doing and just let your mental health take the front seat. Right. So that would be one reason why I would say that it's okay to quit.
Well, and you mentioned physical health.
Yeah.
I mean, if you, I don't know, like you said, get a diagnosis, if you have a car accident, if you have a baby, if you have anything physical happen to you, sometimes you physically cannot write. I mean, sometimes you physically cannot get out of bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I have some chronic disease going on in my life, and I feel like I have too many lanes of traffic sometimes that I'm trying to drive, and then my health gets pushed aside because I feel like this other stuff is so important, but I really have to put my health in the middle lane, because if I don't take care of it, it affects everything else. My brain is foggy, I don't have energy, I can't think. It's just like I have to put my health first, and it's hard because it's so easy to try to push it aside.
I live my life pushing it aside. You guys know I'm so bad about that. Like, I'll deal with that later.
It's tempting because it's not like some of these other things you got to do are more immediate.
Right. Exactly. Which is what NaNo does. NaNo it has a time period on it. It's only 30 days. So it kind of makes its own invisible priority, which is the point. It's the point of like, you're prioritizing your career. You're finally going to write that novel. And that's a good thing. And it makes sense. But sometimes if we let that be more powerful than what we really need to be focusing on, then that becomes an issue. Jamie, I think we also talked about in our planning of this episode about obligations and expectations of others,
if you have others to take care of and you're, I don't know, blowing them off because you have to do your NaNoWriMo, it depends. I mean, what if you have someone whose uncle died? I mean, possibly you should go to the funeral if you're like, should I get my words in or should I go support my friend?
Right.
Should I get my words in or should I take my kid to soccer practice?
Yes.
So sometimes you just have commitments and obligations to others that tend to squeeze out.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, too, you do have a career that you're trying to jumpstart or a hobby or whatever.
Yes.
So at some point, beg a carpool to take your child to soccer practice.
But we're making the case for quitting, Rhonda. We're going to make the case for going on after.
Right.
Okay.
So.
But all right.
The flip of what you're saying too is that sometimes the obligation of others too is like like you feel obligated to write for the others. And if you get to that point where you realize that you're writing for other people, then maybe you need to quit too. I think that would circle back around to your mental health as well, because like what we do is so part of our soul and our being, because we're creatives, that sometimes we can get caught up in the, I gotta get that next book out or everyone's gonna be upset. No, you need to get that next book out because God's given you that next book, right? So sometimes that's a would be a good reason for you to step back and quit Nano. So
And I think for me that everyone's waiting for the book pressure makes me like want to release the book before I am happy with it.
yeah.
And I've had to come to terms with that recently. So
Right. And remember, there's no penalty. Like
right.
if you quit, like no one's going to show up your door and take away your nano rights. Like this is supposed to be for fun, right? And there's always next
Exactly.
year. Always next year.
There's
right?
always next year. And there's nano camps all through the year and all kinds of good stuff going on. Okay.
Oh, just one more thing. If you need a reason to quit, sometimes it's just to kill the part of you that is toxically perfectionistic, because sometimes missing a deadline can really help with that. Sometimes giving up on a commitment that you made to yourself can help. I mean, I don't know that. What I'm saying is I know that I have perfectionism for myself. When I missed my deadline for getting my novel done, it just really did a number on me. And I wonder if I would have done something like quit NaNoWriMo on purpose, just to show myself that I don't have to execute everything with some internal measure of perfection, if that might not have been healthy or helpful for me. So if you're someone who you think struggles with perfectionism, maybe this could be a good exercise for you, is to just give yourself permission to quit.
And along with Jamie, like I have a form of perfectionism too, but it affects me differently. Like me, it's like the prose. I want the prose to be perfect, and I'll go back in and change it and change it and change it. And sometimes when I do that, it makes it worse. And so that's one thing that Nano can kind of, you have to put that aside, but at the same time, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. I think we could have a whole episode on perfectionism, because I have so much to say too, but I'm like, this could be a whole nother episode.
Yeah, it really could.
Yeah. And how it affects us.
Okay, so let's put that in the idea list and go on with the case for not quitting, the case for continuing.
All right. Okay.
Well, I feel like everybody makes this case every year, but we're going to make it too. Sorry, what were you going to say, Jen?
No, I was just going to say, Leah said 300 to 700 words a day is good. It doesn't matter if you win at Nano. It's just as much about the discipline, which is, yes, we all agree with that. So any words will make you better, whether it's 5 words or 50,000 words. Like new words are a win. And the discipline, like as she put it, we call it a daily writing habit here on the podcast. We even have a book out about creating a daily writing habit, 30 writing sprints. To check it out. But yeah, what you gain from doing it every single day, even if you don't win Nano, you're winning in your writing career. So
Barbara had BB, I'm sorry, had an interesting question. Like I feel like we probably should address. She said, if I pray and feel led to start the project, Nano in quotations or in parentheses, is quitting an option?
Well, I think that's also a very personal thing, you know, like because it depends on who you are. If you are a person like Jamie said that struggles with perfectionism and you're only continuing Nano because you feel this obligation you have to do it because God told you. Well, just because God told you doesn't mean that you're doing it the way he wants you to do it. Or maybe you're the person that always puts off what God tells you to do. And you kind of like put it on the back burner and you just kind of like see it over there and you kind of do it. But God is telling you to put everything aside and do his will, then that's different. So I think it's a very personal question that you have to like really take up between you and the Lord. But I think that I think it can be an option. But I think that you guys know, I'm always one that says if God gave you your story, then it deserves the time and respect that he wants you to put into it. Like if he gave that to you, then that is I don't want to use the word obligation, but it's a ministry that he expects you to follow through on, right? So,
Hmm.
I mean, that would be an option for like, no, keep going.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I just have to say that any words that you write, this is the case for continuing,
Mm-hmm.
whether you write 5 words in the month of November or 50,000 or 500,000, any words that you write are a win because they make you a better writer.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
I was watching the 20 books um conference online this week, and somebody was talking about a million, like that's a million words makes you a master, because they were using like the 10-year.
Mm,
There's like this statistics that once you spend so many hours doing something, you become a master, which is why in order to be an electrician, you have to work 5 years as an apprentice, because 40 hours a week times 5 years equals the number of hours. And then they translated that into words if you're a writer, and it was a million words.
mm.
So if you writing a million words makes you a master, then adding any words to that total is getting you closer to your goal.
Interesting. All right, but what if I hate those words? Let's talk about that. That was one of our reasons that we talked about that maybe
Mhm.
somebody would want to quit. What if I'm writing every day, but I hate what I'm writing? I can't stand the story. I can't stand what I've written. I'm a terrible writer. I should just quit. What about that?
I think personally, um, that you should have somebody else read it,
Mm,
because we are our own worst critic.
yes.
And I have heard people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month writing books say they feel that way. Like, I wrote this book and I hated it. I thought it was crap, and I gave it to someone else and they said, "Oh no, this is going to be a bestseller," and it was. Like,
All right.
so I think that we need to get some outside eyes on it if we really think it's that bad.
Right. And we have an
Mhm.
episode about this too, about like not showing your writing to someone too soon, having a cheerleader in your camp that would, like I have a friend who loves Christian romance. She's not an editor. She doesn't have that vibe at all. But sometimes I just give her pieces to look at, or like just to make sure I'm on track. And she like just cheers me on. Like, and sometimes you just need that, right?
Mhm.
Right.
But if you don't have that right now, still keep writing, because like if you tune in here, we do our sprints every week, and 9 times out of 10, at least one of us coming out of the sprints says, "Well, those were words," or "Ugh," like we hate it. And then we read it and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, why do you hate that?" And you get great positive feedback. So, yes, I am totally in the camp that if you hate what you're writing, you may be the only one that hates it. So, keep going. But again, if you really hate it, you can always change, right? Like
Hmm.
the goal is 50,000 words. Yes, the goal is to write a novel, but again, we're not your boss. No nano police are going to show up at your house if you switch your project, right?
Right.
Mhm.
You could stop writing that and write something completely different and still hit 50,000 words.
Right.
Yep. And can I add, maybe what you're writing really is terrible, but how are you ever going to improve if you don't continue writing?
That's
Point.
right.
Good point.
Yep. Nobody picks up a guitar and plays, a guitar solo the first time. There's a lot of practicing and horribly painful to listen to beginning plucking and strumming in the beginning. And it's ridiculous to think that writing would be any different. It's a craft. And I love that Rhonda points out and that Jen points out, like, what is the point of doing NaNoWriMo in the first place is to write 50,000 words. And no one said write 50,000 excellent words. No one said write 50,000 Pulitzer Prize winning words. And
Mhm.
if you're brand new to NaNoWriMo and you go to their website, they talk all the time about locking up your inner editor. And that's that voice that's telling you what you're writing is awful. I mean, that's
Mhm.
step number 1 is to lock up that inner editor and not to let them have any say in the words that are coming out. Just get the words down. Because as Leah pointed out in our chat, and as Jen always says, you can't edit a blank page.
So true.
Unless you're high intellection, then you can edit a blank page in your
That's another
brain
podcast.
before
Yeah.
it goes down. Anyway, um, and my inner editor, I'm a crappy editor, so like I should not be. I shouldn't be listening to my editor at all. Like, not even when I have my editor hat on.
Oh,
No, I
so
should not
funny.
listen to
That's funny.
Okay, so do we have is there any other arguments in the case for continuing?
Well, Leah, I mean, there's just you said you were gonna, so do it. And so Leah offered, she's been doing NaNo for 10 years, has learned tricks. Grocery prep is now a part of NaNo, have meals available, healthy snacks, smoothing, one less excuse.
Yeah,
So
we talked about having that as a podcast episode, like how to like do that kind of stuff. But yeah, maybe next year.
yeah, and just don't make excuses, and quitting is not an option, I guess, is the mentality that you have to take on if you really, really want to be committed to
And like
the NaNo project.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, that like don't keep writing if you're only writing for other people. But remember, you're writing for yourself. So keep that promise to yourself. This is something you're doing for you, something that God has given you. And if you can just hold on to that, just get through. It's only 30 days, right? It's only 30 days. You can do it.
Oh, well, and let's turn the tables on the expectations of other people. Rhonda, you start to say, what? Find someone else to carpool your kids. Say that point now that you were making.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to come up with excuses to not write. So challenge yourself to find ways to write instead of ways not to write. So if you need to take that kid to the soccer practice, then carpool, beg another mother to take your child, and you return the favor in December.
Right.
Or download a Scrivener app or something like that on your phone, and
Mhm.
while you're sitting on the bleachers at
Mhm.
soccer practice, write
Yeah.
on your phone.
Yep. Or dictate.
Ooh. Maria makes the point that you're not alone. A great aspect of NaNo is there are thousands and thousands of writers doing NaNo that you can connect with and can be a support network. You're not doing this crazy thing alone. That can be very helpful
Yes.
to help encourage you not to quit. And I just want to say, if you think about it this way, if you quit your NaNoWriMo, especially if you've been really verbal to your family, I'm doing this, you need to honor my time, and your family sees that you don't honor your time and you don't, then how can you ever expect your family to give you the support when you're asking for it? So you're kind of setting the tone in your own household and with your loved ones about how seriously you take yourself as a writer, and you don't want to give the wrong messaging to the people who count on you, who you've told, I have this commitment and I'm going to be unavailable to you. It's all about showing them that your writing deserves the respect that you're asking for.
I totally agree. But ultimately, just to kind of wrap everything up, ultimately, you know what's best for you. We've given some reasons why we think it's okay to quit. We've given some reasons why we think you shouldn't quit. But you know your family, you know your situation. No one else does. And so it's okay to give yourself forgiveness and quit. And it's also a good thing to keep pushing through. So you know you, and you do what's best for you and your family.
Right.
So are we going to talk about where each of us all are? Are any of you quitting? I want to know, because like I really, really hate what I'm writing. Well, I don't hate what I wrote as much as I know it's not readable. Like I can't hand this to someone and say, oh, here's however many words I've written of a novel, because it's just kind of like this and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's really terrible. I mean, it's totally pukey, awful, blah. And it's like, why am I even doing this? Why am I bothering? And then I have to remember, well, because I told myself I would write every day. And that's the point of why I'm doing NaNoWriMo. So for me, it does not make sense to quit, because the point of me writing was not to have a polished novel at the end of it. The point of writing was for me to get back into writing every single day. Where are the rest of you with your projects and your desire to quit or not?
I have no desire to quit. I right now currently 2 days behind, but I can easily catch that up today when we're done here.
That's good, Rhonda.
Yeah, way to go.
Thank you.
Today's what, the 12th? So if I do the math, I am about 12 days behind. Okay, not quite. It feels like it. But I'm not quitting though. Like I don't even want to sit here and tell you all the things that have sidetracked me and what's going on with me emotionally and everything. I don't want to go there because I know what is best is for me to keep going. And I know, like, again, if I get 5 words a day, I will have 5 more words times 30 by the end of the month. And so I know all these things. And it could happen that, like, starting the 15th, I have, like, the rest of the month, I do really great. So I'm not quitting, but I don't think I'm going to reach 50,000 words, and that is okay. Because
See, you're not quitting even though
I'm
you
not.
don't think you're going to reach your goal.
I'm
That's
not.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because I've had enough nanos where I tried and there was just no way because of life.
Yeah.
And so something that BB said too, another thought,
Mhm.
you never know what will come out of NaNo, a writers
Mhm.
group. I want to stop right there really quick because BB was in our original writers group. And the year that I had cancer, we started the whole conversation out with that back in 2016. I was feeling very defeated, but I was there. I was still showing up. Like, I was still right. Like, they knew I had to go in for surgery. And so I was still going to all the NaNo events, and then I ended up in surgery, and then I couldn't go to anything else until probably December, I think, when we had our it's over party. Anyway, I get this message from this person I don't even know saying, "Hey, I noticed you haven't been there." And so I kind of told her what was going on, and she said, "I will be praying for you." I'm like, "Oh, awesome." And then she reached out to me again, "Hey, I'm starting this writing group. Are you interested in it?" So if it hadn't been for Rhonda seeing me at a writing event and saying and hearing that I was writing Christian, and anyway, not only that, like, I wouldn't have been in a writing group. I probably never would have finished a novel. I wouldn't be on this podcast. And so you never know. You keep plugging away. And like Maria said, there's others out there that you can connect with. It is you. NaNo has so many layers more than just finishing 50,000 words. So I'm not giving up. So
Yay for Rhonda. Rhonda is the reason that we're here today.
Well, I have to tell you that Jennifer walked into this. Okay, Jennifer's
no.
a tall woman. Okay, so she's you can see her
presence,
anywhere.
yeah.
She's a presence.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so she walked in and
Oh my
she's got this
goodness.
gorgeous scarf across her neck. I didn't realize it was camouflage, and she's got her notebook and her paper and her glasses on top of her. And I thought, oh, she's a writer. She has got to have like 15 published novels. I have got to attach myself to this woman because she will tell me how to write a book. Well, anyway, that's not exactly how it worked
So
out.
it was totally selfish, is what you're saying.
Kinda. Yeah. But then, Jamie and Tina and a couple other members of our group were all the same thing, and yeah, it was wonderful. It was the best circumstance that could have happened.
It was life-changing, I think, for all of us.
For
Yes,
all
I
of us,
agree.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So praise God for cancer, because I don't know that Rhonda, if I hadn't been showing up, if Rhonda would have like reached out, like maybe
Probably
not.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
Although
yeah.
at those write-ins, those of us who were Christian authors did kind of gravitate toward each
You
other.
guys did.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of you. You guys are all sitting on. I didn't know, like, and it was like our NaNo group here local
Mhm.
is pretty big. I know other places it's kind of not, but ours, they do a pretty good job of doing events and stuff. And so I thought I was the only Christian. Actually, I knew Tina, but she didn't know me, kind of a situation. So I knew she was a Christian, and so I kind of made an assumption that whole little group was, but and I know I come off as like being like not shy, but I'm kind of shy. So
Mm.
like I didn't like go up and say, "Hey, can I sit with you?" I didn't. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
So
Okay, so I guess that leaves me. And so for all of you guys that are quitting, I'm with you because I quit.
really,
I did. Because of my chronic health issues, it was just like one too many things on my plate. I'm also a pastor's wife. I teach a Bible study. Um, and so I have other obligations. Like I spent all day yesterday trying to figure out why our website went down. So like I have these other obligations, and that was just one more thing. And I just couldn't. I just could not take on one more thing, one more pressure on me to do something. And it wasn't serving me because I'm doing the editing and revision process right now. And so the whole point of NaNo to write 50,000 words was not serving me with my writing career. So I'm still working on my writing career from like 6 to 8 in the morning, because that's what time I've been waking up. Uh, and I like to do it first thing when I wake up because that's like it's all fresh in my mind because I think about it before I go to bed at night. So anyway, yeah, so I quit. I'm not doing NaNo. So for anybody that feels like you have to, you have a person to do it with. So
Well, I'm glad that you've come to that realization, Tina, and that you feel good about that decision. So
yeah,
fully
it feels
support
like a
you.
huge weight taken, like lifted off of my shoulders that didn't need to be there in the first place. Honestly,
Awesome.
yeah. Okay, so does anyone else have anything they want to add about quitting or not quitting?
Just have fun. That's the whole point of this, is to have
Right.
fun. So enjoy
Enjoy
the
it.
process.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's time for the feeding of the backs. What did I just say? Well, when we first started our writing group, when it was time to give feedback, everybody got a certain amount of time. And then I think it was Jamie that first said, well, is your back well fed? Feedback. And so it just turned into the feeding of the back. So because we only had 15 minutes, we didn't have time to outline or plan or plot. We just had 15 minutes to sit down and write, and no time for editing or revision. We only give positive feedback. And so we are going to share what we wrote just before the podcast started. And if you want to do this with us, you can follow us on social media, or you can get our newsletter, and the prompt will be in there, and you can follow along with us. And we would love to read what you've done.
Yes, please tag us.
We love that. Okay, so I am going to start with Jennifer today.
Okay, so I'm glad you started with me, actually. I wrote not in my world. Like I wrote in Marnie's world again, and that's not the novel I'm working on. So maybe that's my problem, is that I'm writing the wrong NaNo project. I don't know.
Oh,
but
maybe.
I was like halfway through this and I realized, wait a minute, it's November. I'm supposed to be writing in my world that I'm writing my project in. But here we go. Back to Marnie. Marnie stormed through the door of Mr. Boss's office and slammed the door shut behind her. See, it's not edited. I don't need to say door twice. We know what it is. Right. Marnie stormed through the door of Mr. Boss's office and slammed it shut behind her. It felt good. This physical and audible manifestation of the storm that was brewing beneath the surface of what she could only imagine was a hot red face. But that satisfaction was short-lived when the action did not elicit the response she'd expected. Mr. Boss was unaffected. Not even a bit. No flinch, no whipping of the head in her direction. He just kept his casual pace as he rounded his desk, then sat calmly in his chair. Did you have something more you wanted to say, Ms. Maxwell? He didn't even look up at her as he said it, just dropped his folder on his desk and opened the drawer to pull out a pen. The least he could do was make eye contact with her. He didn't even find her significant enough to look at her when he spoke. She might as well have been the DoorDash delivery person dropping off his lunch from Eduardo's. With every second of silence and dismissiveness, Marnie felt her blood pressure rising until it finally exploded out of her mouth. That's it. I quit. At this, which I forgot to start off, that was our prompt. That's it. I quit. Okay. At this, Mr. Boss put down his pen, folded his hands, and finally lifted his eyes to meet hers. No, you don't. No, you don't. What in the world? Marnie thought. Dumbfounded, all she could think to say was, "Yeah." Mr. Boss slowly shook his head. No, you aren't quitting. As shock began to wear off, anger returned. You don't have the right to tell me whether or not I quit a job. It is my choice. You don't own me. I didn't say you couldn't quit. I said you aren't. I'm just stating what we both know. You aren't leaving, not because I say so, but because you don't actually have any intention to. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, no. I was really into it. It's so funny because you apologized about using the door twice, but then you had that amazing line after, what she could only imagine was a hot red face. Like that whole sentence that immediately follows your two doors is very good. Why don't you read it again? What is that sentence?
It felt good, this physical and audible manifestation of the storm that was brewing beneath the surface of what she could only imagine was a hot red face.
Yeah, that's amazing right there. See?
Oh, thanks.
So, I mean, like you go in and polish it up and take out the word door twice. Like, I mean, it's really, really good stuff there. It was great.
Thanks. I'd like to point out that I would not have written this way at my first NaNo. I would have said something like, her face was red and hot. She can't see. There's no mirror for her to see. And even though I am omniscient, like you still are, if I'm coming from her perspective, there's still like a respect that needs to happen in the way you write it. And that's one of the things that I've had to work on over the years. And so Nano works because that was just a sprint and it came out better than I would have written it 5 years ago for sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
very
thank you.
good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and go next because I accidentally wrote a romance.
We get a little nervous when Tina writes a romance. This is
And
awesome. I can't
a
wait.
lot of the things that you're talking about kind of are relevant.
Okay, great.
So I'm going to read mine next. That's it. I quit. You can't quit. You're fired. You can't fire me because I already quit. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. Excuse me, ma'am. You have a call on line 2 from the mayor's office. Tanya reached down and picked up the receiver, her finger hovering over the line 2 button. So you'll have that done by the end of the day, she said to Samantha. I'll do my best, Samantha replied, grabbing her stuff and scooting out of the office. Back at her desk, she stared at the computer screen, the cursor blinking back at her, mocking her with its consistency. It doesn't have to be perfect, said a deep, rich voice. It just has to be good enough. Samantha didn't have to look up to know Jeff was leaning with his forearms on the partition wall, looking at her with those impossibly blue eyes. She kept her eyes locked on her screen. I'll never win a Pulitzer by writing substandard stuff, she replied. He laughed. His laugh sounded through the room and stuffed itself down her throat into her belly. She tried to ignore the sensation of butterflies all over her skin. Nobody ever won a Pulitzer writing a self-help column. I know, her shoulders slumped, and she made the mistake of looking up. The old battle axe wouldn't let you write that piece on the plight of missing Indigenous women, would she? Jeff asked, the warmth in his eyes making Samantha's muscles melt off her bones. She shook her head, suddenly unable to articulate anything despite the fact words were her life. I would really miss you, Jeff said, but maybe it's time you considered working for someone besides your mother. Samantha
Ooh.
shrugged. Think about it, Jeff added. You're an outstanding writer, and I have a friend. 3, 2, 1.
I love this idea of her being a self-help columnist. Like, that's so great. Like, love that idea.
I love the shattering moment that it's her mother.
Yes.
Like, because right, how effective is it to go in and say I quit to your mother? She's like,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of Rhonda. Your face was reacting a lot to the descriptions.
Okay, so I would love to have you finish writing this because this is the kind of romance I would just devour. Her emotions were being shoved down into her belly and her muscles were melting off of her skin, or I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but off of her bones. I love this. I enjoyed listening to it so much.
Yeah, I could tell by your expressions. It was fun.
oh, I didn't get to see him because I was reading.
Fortunate for you, Tina, this is being recorded, so you can go back and watch it later.
Yeah, I don't really like to watch myself on recordings, but okay, who's next? Rhonda, you want to go
Just
next?
real quick, Shell says, truth. I used to work for my mom and she never let me quit. Leah says, I once told my dad, my boss at the time, I'd rather lick toilets and work for you again.
Wow.
That's pretty committed.
Yeah.
You got to put that in your next book. That's really great, Leah.
Okay, here we go. Hazel tossed up a handful of leaves and watched them lazily fall back to earth. She rolled over a little to find a fresh, fluffy patch of leaves to rest her head on, but by now the pile was flatter than when she had started raking. She sat up and looked at her watch. 2:30. She'd been at this working or playing or whatever she was doing for 3 hours now. Hazel wasn't a gardener. She had always left it up to her sister Mabel, but Hazel never missed her chance at raking leaves. The vibrant colors, the satisfying crunch of the leaves under her feet, the smell of someone's bonfire undoubtedly wafting gently on the fall breeze. She took her gloves off and began counting. She figured that if her dad put a rake in her hand at the age of 10, she must have been doing this for over 60 years now. Wow. Oh no, Hazel, are you okay? The panic in the woman's voice shocked Hazel. She frantically looked around to see if something was coming after her, but all she could see was her young neighbor, Allie, running at her. Hazel raised her rake close to her chest. Allie was friendly, but there was always an emergency with her, and that thought helped Hazel relax a bit. Allie had reached the edge of Hazel's pile, arms outstretched and frantically waving. The end.
Oh, what?
Sorry. It's your timer. What can I tell you?
Well, she's
Okay, it's
blaming
my
you for
fault.
the timer now, Jen.
Yep.
It's like she blames me for the random 5-word generator.
Yes.
Is this Hazel? Is this Z? Your character Z?
It is her at an older age, like
Yeah.
as a 70-ish woman.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah,
So-
that playfulness is still there.
yes. I totally got the whole like that she's older, but yeah, the playfulness. I love that. And the person that's always like there's always some sort of drama running towards her. Like, yeah, it was great.
Thank you very much.
I just love the way that you write characters, Rhonda.
Oh, thank you.
Like you always like get this deepness to them with so few words. It's just amazing to me.
Well, thank
Agreed.
you very much.
Piper says, ROFL, Rhonda, oh my goodness, this is so great. Leah says, what happened? Jill says, Rhonda, I need more of Hazel. We all need more of Hazel, for sure.
You can find more of Hazel on Vella, can't you, Rhonda?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So she's a person in your Kindle Vella stories?
Yes, as a young woman, just starting out on her own.
So give it a plug. What is it called, and who is it by, and how can they find it?
It's on Vella by Dee Dee Bowman. It's the only book up by her right now. It's just look for the big Z.
Awesome.
All right, awesome. Okay, Jamie, last but definitely not least.
All right, here we go.
It's your turn.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to click go live this morning. So my live sprint turned into a flop. My live sprint turned into me typing, hey, everyone, I forgot to click go live. So sorry about that. All right, here we go. That's it. I quit. No, Cherie, you can't. We're in the middle of Rib Fest, and there's no way we can handle this volume with only 2 servers on the floor. Please have mercy. As I pleaded with my star server to hang in there for just a few more hours, I slung dishes of macaroni and cheese and green beans into the service window. Boss, I need garlic bread to sell this plate, Kyle said, spinning a dish in the window to further scrutinize it. Without blinking, I turned and picked a piece of sizzling Texas toast up off the grill with a gloved hand and tossed it onto the dish, knowing Kyle would use a service pick to position it nicely before running it out to the dining room. Good old Kyle and his propensity for pleasant presentation, I thought. And though the smile didn't reach my lips, I enjoyed the little brain buzz the alliteration had given me. I turned my thoughts back to Cherie. She was standing in the middle of the service alley with one hand pressed to her forehead and the other holding her open server pad. She was staring at the paper as though it were an ancient document written in an unknown tongue instead of the order for the 15 tops she had just written down. I'm going to help Cherie, I said to Smitty, who was busy putting plates together next to me. You guys have this under control. I did my best not to make the statement sound like a question. Smitty was terrific, but he was paired up with a new guy today, and I wasn't sure Jim was going to be able to keep up the pace. I whispered my 45th prayer of the day that things would slow down as I rounded the corner and put a hand out toward my distraught server. How can I help you? Do you need me to make some salads? I don't even have all the drinks out yet, and of course they want separate checks, and I can't remember which kid goes with what set of parents. It's okay, I said, wondering if it was a lie. Just tell me how many glasses of water you need to start. As I filled glass after glass with scoops of ice and water, Cherie disappeared back into the dining room. There was a loud crash. Oh, no, I muttered, and hustled out to see what the damage was. There on the ground was Cherie, and with her was the contents of a tray our new busboy Brandon had been carrying. Plastic cups had rolled underneath nearby booths, and I wondered how many of our customers had been in the splash zone. I couldn't think about that yet, though. I had to focus on my people. Brandon, I'm so sorry this happened. Cherie, are you all right? Brandon was already scrambling to recover the plastic cups and fragments of dishware. I moved to help Cherie up, but she leapt to her feet. I held my breath, waiting for her response. She had already been on the precipice of walking out. Surely this would be the end of her days working for me. To my surprise, she started laughing. Huge guffaws that seemed to well up from deep inside of her. I'm fine, she said, taking in a huge breath before bursting into another fit of laughter. Oh my gosh, I sure need to watch where I'm going. I grinned uneasily. I'd been through a lot with Cherie, and this response was a bit unexpected. Are you sure you're okay? I asked. She shook her head. Listen, boss, I needed a bit of a reality check. I'd allowed myself to get a bit overwhelmed. Now I realize my guests are more than willing to wait for me if I just calm down and keep communicating. After all, if I'd have gone down for the count just then, they wouldn't be getting any service at all. You're right, I said, smiling. I'm sure they actually appreciate your concern that they get excellent service. Good grief, I've made a mess, she said, and began picking up some of the unbroken plates. I've got this, I said. Your waters are waiting on the counter. Go and gather them up. That's it.
So good.
Wow. I felt like I could actually smell the food. It was such a realistic view of what happens back there.
Right. Piper agrees. She says, Jamie, this is such a great glimpse of the hustle of a busy restaurant. Wow. Yeah. I would love to see you make a restaurant the setting for a novel. Like not be the story, but that just be the setting. Like maybe like if it was a cozy mystery and she worked in a restaurant, or it's a women's fiction or something. Like I just love that because it's so real. And I feel like now in today's day and age too, like I think we're so much more aware of servers and their struggles today with everything, with like the understaffing and the problems that are happening now, that I think there could be a novel that would like really get eaten up. So I love that. I just love it.
That's
so good at it.
Because the NaNo project that I hate has several scenes in it because my main character is working as a waitress. So there are some restaurant scenes in there.
That's exciting.
I got totally distracted by the garlic bread. And now I'm having trouble thinking about what was awesome about the rest of it because I'm so hungry right now. I want some garlic bread.
We always do this to ourselves. At least one of us writes something about food, and then now we are like pushing 11 o'clock thinking about lunch already. So that's hilarious. Yep. Lots of great chatter in the chat too, Jamie. Great alliteration, Leah says. Shell says, such great detail of the space and the inner thoughts and feelings. Piper, this is for me. She says, eating up, LOL. I see what you did there, Jen. I didn't mean to, but thanks.
Thanks, everybody. I love defeating of the backs. I love words of affirmation. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really great. And it really felt like you were inside a restaurant and like the food, I could smell it.
Because I've never worked in a restaurant, because we all see that I can't walk without destroying things. So imagine me carrying things too. So so as somebody who's never ever even tried to work in a restaurant, I totally felt like I was there. I felt like I understood and I was like inside her head. Like it just felt like I was a worker. So that was great. Well done.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So if that concludes our feedback, if everybody's back is well fed, we can move on to what's next. So this is kind of a repeat of what's up, but we talk about what's next. So I am going to go backwards this time and start with Jamie.
Man alive. What's next for me is, well, I am keeping my NaNo daily word count requirement up. Hooray. The rest of my writerly career stuff is kind of, I don't know, toileted. It's so funny because I'm working now. And so when I'm at work, I'm like, I'm going to go home. And with my time that I'm not working, I'm going to get into the sound booth and start the audio of my novel. And then I don't. And then the next time I'm at work, I'm like, when I go home, I'm going to get into the sound booth and do the audio of my NaNo. And I don't. And also, I haven't been updating my author, my website. I haven't been keeping up with my newsletter. Like everything is just kind of bleh. But I know that that's a season for me. And I know it's not typical of me. And I'm the boss of me. And my career is just kind of dormant right now anyway. So at least I'm doing the daily writing, which, you know, Tina said 1 million words. And that's very encouraging because I know I'm on my way. And I'm just hoping to become such a great writer that people cannot resist my words. So the daily writing habit is where it's at for me right now. That's my what's next.
Okay. Awesome. What about you, Jen?
So, kind of like said it in what we talked about earlier, but I'm just plugging away little by little. I'm not going to make my NaNo goal, and I'm okay with that. And I'm trying to help with my mom as much as possible and just doing life, you know, homeschooling and everything. So My what's next for this week is to try to write every day. I don't have a numbers goal like I would have if I was doing better in Nano. So
Right.
I'm just going to keep plugging away so that I'm doing daily writing for sure. So, all right. In our chat, Jason says, what's next? Trying to catch up on Nano. Currently, I'm at 5,000 words behind where I need to be. Oh, that's easy catch up. Yeah, you can totally do that. Piper says, next, the book selling and author signing part of the 20 Books Vegas starts in a couple hours. And my brother flew in from California to go through it with me. So that's next. That's
That's
awesome.
so cool. I'm so jealous.
Yeah. And hey, Piper, did you run into or see our guest from a couple weeks ago? I'm just curious if you've run into Ben Wolf yet. And then Leah says her what's next, moving forward, get better at little things that would make my career better, reach more people with my words. That is a great goal.
Yeah, and I want to know, is Piper selling her own books and signing there? That's really neat.
No, she means that I think it's a class, but
No,
maybe.
you actually go through and there's tables and all these authors signing. You can get their books and get them signed.
Gotcha.
And she did send me a picture of her and Becca Syme waving at me. Like, they
Aw,
took a selfie
that's
just for me.
awesome.
It was like, it made me feel so special. Well, I'll go next. So this really incredible thing happened when I made up my mind and I shut up the voices on my shoulders and made them go away. That weight was lifted off and I suddenly felt inspired and I suddenly felt like suddenly had this clarity. Like I was just like walking through murkiness trying to figure out like the editing, the revision. I mean, really it's revision. It's like, so I'm not worrying about punctuation and spelling and all that stuff right now. It's actually the story plot kind of situation that I'm working on. And I was struggling with that and it was kind of murky and I was just trying to figure it out. And I would think I found an answer, but it really wasn't. But suddenly I just had this clarity and I know where I need to go now and I know what I need to do. And it's just needed to take that pressure off myself for that to happen. So I'm really happy about that.
Do you still anticipate, like, you don't know? You still think the book will be out by the end of the year?
I would like it to be, but I'm not going to try to even think about that because I have some work to do. So we'll see what happens.
Ah, Jason says he became an associate pastor at the church he's working at.
That's nice.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
That's big. Way to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, Rhonda, what's next with you?
What's next is just plugging away. I'm going to try to catch up on my 2 missing days and try to get back ahead again like I was. I like being ahead.
That's awesome.
Yeah, being ahead takes that pressure off, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So are there any other what's ups or what's next in the chat? Sorry about forgetting to call on you, Rhonda. I saw my name and I got distracted. Little squirrel. I saw my name in the chat. I was reading it, and then so Jen took over for me. Way to save me. I probably shouldn't have called it out. Nobody would have noticed. All right. So this concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. And until next week, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.